In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to knit this little cardigan sweater, coat, or jacket. It's a unisex pattern. You can make it for boys and girls, and it's for babies between 3 and 6 months old. Now, you can easily make it smaller or bigger from 0 to 3 months and up to 9 to 12 months. Down here in the information box, I'll go ahead and leave you some information on how you can easily make it smaller or bigger, so be sure to check that out. Now, as always, if you prefer a written pattern, check out my Etsy shop. I'll leave the link to my Etsy shop in the information box and in the comments. Thank you so much for your support. Now let's get started, but don't forget to subscribe, activate the notifications bell so that YouTube can recommend my videos. And if you like this tutorial, please hit the like button. Thanks so much for watching. Okay, to begin and knit this little sweater, I'll be using these 3mm knitting needles. These are circular needles, but you can also use straight needles. Now, this is the yarn that I'm using. This is a number 3 yarn. Now, we are going to have some color variation, and that's because the yarn is like this. Now, this is the brand of yarn that I'm using. Like I said, it's a number 3 yarn, but you can also use DK weight or A ply. The first thing that we need to do is we need to cast on our stitches. Now, I'm going to show you how to cast on your stitches using the long tail cast on. So to do this, we first need to measure the yarn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap the yarn around like this, both needles, 20 times. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Now I have enough yarn here for about 20 stitches. We're going to cast on a total of 64 stitches. So we're going to double it up like this. That's enough for 40. And double it up again, enough for 60. And I'm going to double it up again so that I have enough for about 80 stitches. We're not going to cast on 80 stitches, but it's best to have some left over than to have to remeasure this again. So here's the yarn. Here, make a slip knot. And now insert both needles through this loop. This yarn is the one we just measured, and this is coming from the skein. Insert your index finger and open the yarn. And now we're going to go from left to right, and we're going to grab a loop like this. This is the long tail cast on method. And this is how we're going to continue until we have 64 stitches. So continue. Let's finish this part, and then I'll come back and show you what we need to do next. I finished casting on my stitches. I have 64. Now here I'm just going to tie a knot here at the end so that this last stitch here does not open too much. There. Now carefully remove one of the needles. Like I said, you can use straight needles. I'm using these circular needles as straight needles. There. Now to begin with the first row, we're going to knit across, including the first stitch. So knit the first stitch, knit the second stitch, and every stitch across like this. Knit. Continue, finish this first row. I'll meet you at the end. I'm here at the end of this first row. Now knit the last stitch, turn for the second row. Now for the second row, we're going to repeat the same thing. Knit the first stitch, knit the next stitch, and repeat the same thing up to the end of this second row. Continue, finish this row. I'll come back and show you what we need to do next. I finished the second row. Now we're going to turn for the third row. For the third row, we're going to just knit across. Same thing we did in the second row, like this. So continue, finish this third row where you just knit across. I'll come back and show you what we need to do next. I finished the third row. That's where we knit across. Now we're going to turn for the fourth row. Now this is a unisex pattern. If you want to be precise, you can make the buttonholes at the end of the row for girls and at the beginning for boys. Like I said, it's a unisex pattern, so I'm just going to be adding my buttonholes here at the beginning of the row. So here to begin in the fourth row, I'm going to knit 3. 1, 2, 3. Now to make the buttonhole, you're going to yarn over, knit 2 together, and knit 1. Now here I'm going to place a stitch marker. These 6 stitches here, this is going to be our button band. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to knit across up to the last 6 stitches, and then I'm going to place a stitch marker and then knit the last 6 stitches. So continue, finish this 4th row. I will meet you at the end. I'm here at the end of the 4th row. I have the last 6 stitches. Here I'm going to place a stitch marker. Now knit 6 to finish the row. At the end of this row, I'm going to be left with 64 stitches. At the beginning of the row, we added our first buttonhole. Now turn for the 5th row. In the 5th row, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to knit 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now the 6th stitch, when we're on the wrong side, you are always going to slip purlwise past your stitch marker and then knit across. I will meet you right here 6 stitches before we finish to show you how we're going to finish this 5th row. I'm here at the end of the 5th row. Now pass your stitch marker. I have the last 6 stitches here. The stitch before the stitch marker, which is this next stitch, bring the yarn to the front, slip the stitch purlwise. Now knit the next stitch. Then I have the yarn over that I did at the beginning of the row. I'm going to be adding small buttons, so I'm going to knit this yarn over through the back like this. That way the hole is not too big. If you want to use bigger buttons, then you can knit through the front. And now just knit 3. And here is the 5th row. At the end of this row, we haven't done any increases. You should still have 64 stitches. Now we're going to turn for the 6th row. In the 6th row, we're now going to begin our raglan increases. So before we continue, I need you to place some stitch markers. Here I have the first stitch marker. This is for the button band. I have 6 stitches. Then you're going to count 2, 4, 6, 8. Place a stitch marker, 1 stitch, place a stitch marker. Now for the shoulder here, we have 2, 4, 6, 8. Place a stitch marker, 1 stitch, place a stitch marker. For the back side, I have 16. I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Place a stitch marker. Then I have 1 stitch, place a stitch marker. For the second sleeve or shoulder, I have 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. Place a stitch marker, 1 stitch, place a stitch marker, and then for the second front panel, I have 8, and then I have the stitch marker, and then here are the 6 stitches for the front panels. Now, or the button band. Now, to begin the 6th row, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to knit across. Here, I'm going to knit 6 plus 8. So to begin, knit the first stitch. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pass your stitch marker, and now I'm going to knit the next 8 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Here I have the first stitch marker. Here I'm going to yarn over, then I'm going to pass the stitch marker. I'm going to knit the center stitch, pass the stitch marker, and yarn over. Now I'm going to knit the next 8 stitches. 1, 8. Here we have the next 2 stitch markers. Yarn over, pass your stitch marker, knit the center stitch, pass your stitch marker, and yarn over. Now for the back side, I'm going to knit 16. 1, 2, 16. Yarn over, pass your stitch marker, knit the center stitch that's between the two stitch markers, pass your stitch marker, yarn over, and now knit 8. 1, 8. And here we have the last stitch markers, yarn over, pass your stitch marker, knit the center stitch, pass your stitch marker, yarn over, and knit 8. 1, 8. Pass your stitch marker, knit 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And here is row 6. Now at the end of this 6th row, you should have a total of 72 stitches. We have increased 8 stitches. We have 2, 4, 6, 8 yarn overs, which are the increases. So you should have 72 stitches at the end of the 6th row. Now for the 7th row, we're going to turn. In this row, when you're on the wrong side, you're going to knit 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now the stitch that's before the stitch marker, that's part of these 6. So the 6th stitch, you're going to slip purlwise, pass your stitch marker, and we're going to knit up to the first yarn over here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have the first yarn over. I'm going to knit the yarn over like this, pass the stitch marker. I'm going to slip the center stitch, pass my stitch marker, and knit the second yarn over like this. The important thing here is that when you're on the wrong side, you're going to slip this stitch that's before the stitch marker for the button band, and you're always going to slip purlwise the stitches that are in between the two stitch markers. And this is going to create this beautiful raglan so that it looks like this. So this is done by slipping the first stitch so that it looks like this. So when you're on the wrong side, you slip the stitch. When you're on the right side, you knit the stitch. And same thing for the button band. This is what we're trying to create here, a separation between the button band and the rest of the body of the sweater. So again, I'm going to show you one more time here. This is the wrong side, so this is the 7th row. So odd number of stitches are on the wrong side. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have the next yarn over, knit the yarn over, pass your stitch marker, bring the yarn here to the back, and slip purlwise the center stitch, pass your stitch marker, and knit the second yarn over. Again, knit 1, 2, 16. Here's the yarn over, knit, pass the stitch marker, bring the yarn to the back, and slip the stitch in the center purlwise, pass your stitch marker, bring the yarn to the front again, and knit the yarn over. Again, 1, 2, 8. Here's the yarn over, knit past the stitch marker, bring the yarn to the back, slip the center stitch purlwise, pass your stitch marker, bring your yarn to the front, knit the next yarn over, and then knit 1, 2, 8. Pass your stitch marker. We have the last 6 stitches, the stitch before the stitch marker, which is this next stitch. Bring the yarn to the front, slip the stitch purlwise, and knit the last 5 stitches. And here is the 7th row. At the end of this row, you should also have 72 stitches. Now we're going to turn for the 8th row. I'm going to place a stitch marker, that way you don't get confused on which side you're going to make your increases. Whenever you see a stitch marker here at the beginning, that means that in this row you're going to make your increases. So here for the 8th row, you're going to knit 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pass your stitch marker, and here now I have 9 stitches. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. I'm going to knit 9, 1, 9. Yarn over, pass your stitch marker, knit the center stitch, pass your stitch marker, yarn over, and then knit 1, 10. Yarn over, pass your stitch marker, knit the center stitch, pass your stitch marker, and yarn over. And now you're just going to continue and knit the next set of stitches. Before the stitch marker, you yarn over, pass your stitch marker, knit the center stitch, pass your stitch marker, yarn over, and then knit these next stitches, and repeat the same thing for this last set of stitch markers. Before the stitch marker, you're going to yarn over, pass your stitch marker, knit the center stitch, pass your stitch marker, yarn over, and then knit the last set of stitches for the front panel, pass your stitch marker, and knit the last 6 stitches. I will meet you at the end of this 8th row. I finished the 8th row. Here at the end, I knit the last 6 stitches. I have a total of 80 stitches at the end of this row because we have increased 8 more stitches. 2, 4, 6, 8. Now turn for the 9th row. Now for this 9th row, I'm going to knit 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's that stitch before the stitch marker. Remember, when you're on the wrong side, this 6th stitch, you always slip purlwise. Make sure that yarn here is behind that stitch, pass your stitch marker, and now we're going to knit up to the first yarn over. That's 1, here's the yarn over, so 10. Now pass your stitch marker, bring the yarn to the back and slip the center stitch purlwise, pass the stitch marker, bring the yarn to the front, and knit the 2nd yarn over. And that's all you're going to do for this 9th row. The important thing is for you to remember to knit the yarn over, pass your stitch marker, slip the center stitch purlwise, pass your stitch marker, and then knit the 2nd yarn over. And that's how you're going to work each one of the increases that we did in the previous row up to the last 6 stitches. I will meet you here at the end to show you how we're going to finish this 9th row. I'm here at the end of the 9th row. I have the last 6 stitches. I'm going to pass my stitch marker, and remember, the stitch before the stitch marker, or after in this case since we're on the wrong side, you are going to slip purlwise, bring the yarn back to the front, and knit the last 5 stitches. And here's the 9th row. At the end of this row, you should have 80 stitches as well. Now we're going to turn. Now for the 10th row, we're going to increase. We're on the right side. We have the stitch marker here. So here I'm going to knit 6. Pass your stitch marker. Now here I'm going to knit up to the first stitch marker. So that's 1, 10. Now this is what you're going to do before the first stitch marker. You're going to yarn over, and you can clearly see here the center stitch. Pass your stitch marker, knit the center stitch, pass your stitch marker, and yarn over. Now knit the next section of stitches, so that's 2, 12. We have a stitch marker, so you yarn over, pass your stitch marker, knit the center stitch, pass your stitch marker, yarn over, and then knit the next section. That's how you're going to repeat the same thing for these last 2 set of stitch markers. Continue, finish this 10th row. I will meet you at the end. I'm here at the end of the 10th row. In this row we have increased, so I have a total of 88 stitches at the end of this row. 2, 4, 6, 8. Now we're going to turn for the 11th row. Now for the 11th row here, we're going to knit 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have the stitch before the stitch marker. Bring the yarn to the back, slip the 6th stitch purlwise, bring the yarn to the front again, pass your stitch marker, and knit up to the first yarn over. So that's 1, 10. Here's the yarn over. That's 11. Pass your stitch marker, bring the yarn to the back, slip the center stitch purlwise, pass your stitch marker, bring the yarn to the front, and knit the 2nd yarn over. Now knit the next section of stitches. 1, 2, 12. Here's the yarn over, knit the yarn over, pass your stitch marker, bring the yarn to the back, slip the center stitch purlwise, pass your stitch marker, bring the yarn to the front, and knit the 2nd yarn over. And that's how you're going to continue for this 11th row. I will meet you here at the end to once again show you how you're going to work this stitch after the stitch marker. I'm here at the end of the 11th row. Now pass your stitch marker, have the last 6 stitches. Remember, the stitch before the stitch marker here at the end, you slip purlwise with the yarn here in the back, bring the yarn back to the front, and knit the last 5 stitches. Always, when you're on the wrong side, you always do this with the stitch that's before or after the stitch marker and the stitches that are in between the stitch markers. Now turn for the 12th row. I'm going to show you one more time how you're going to continue for the rest of the yoke here. So we're on the right side. This is an increase row, so knit 6. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pass your stitch marker. I'm going to knit up to the first stitch marker. So that's 1, 11. We have the stitch marker next, so you're going to yarn over, pass your stitch marker, knit the center stitch. When you're on the right side, you knit the center stitch. When you're on the wrong side, you slip purlwise. Now pass your stitch marker, yarn over, and then knit the next section of stitches. 1, 2, 14. We have the stitch marker, yarn over, pass your stitch marker, knit the center stitch, pass your stitch marker, yarn over, and continue knit the next section until you finish this 12th row. Now this is how we're going to continue for the rest here. We're just going to repeat these 2 rows that I just showed you here. The important thing here is that when you're on the right side, which is where we have the stitch marker and where we have the buttonhole here on this side, you make your increases. You make your increases before the stitch marker, pass your stitch marker, knit the center stitch, pass your stitch marker, and yarn over. When I say increases, I mean the yarn overs. Those are the increases. As you can see here, you see the little holes, and as this part here grows, this is how it's going to look. This is the right side, and here's the wrong side. So that's what we want to do here with the yoke. It's very easy. I have shown you a couple rows, or a total of 12 rows now, of how you're going to do this part here. So that's how you're going to continue. I'm not sure how many rows I'm going to do from here on, but continue watching. I will let you know exactly how many rows I'm going to do. Keep track of your rows. Once I finish this part, I'll come back and show you how it looks, and I'm going to tell you how many rows I have done here, and I'm also going to tell you on which rows I have done my buttonholes, so that way you do the same thing. So continue, make sure that you always increase on the right side exactly how I showed you here, and when you're on the wrong side, make sure that you slip these stitches here, which is the stitch before the stitch marker here for the front panels, and the stitches in between the stitch markers. Make sure you slip those stitches purlwise, and that's how you're going to continue, just repeating these 2 rows. Now continue watching. Like I said, I will let you know exactly how many rows I'm going to do, and I'm going to tell you on which row you need to do the buttonholes. I finished the yoke. I did a total of 37 rows. At the end of row 37, I have 192 stitches. Now this part here is measuring right across. It's measuring about 10.5 centimeters, which is a little bit over 4 inches. And I have added 3 buttonholes so far. So what we're going to do in the next row is we're going to work this front panel, and then I'm going to work the first sleeve. After I finish the first sleeve, I'm going to continue with the back side and then work on the second sleeve and then finish this second front panel. So this row here is going to be a long one. So let's get started here. For the front panels, I'm going to leave, let's see, 30 stitches. For each one of the sleeves, I'm going to leave 42 stitches, and for the back side, I'm going to leave 48 stitches. For the second sleeve, again 42 stitches, and for the second front panel, 30 stitches. So let's get started here. This is going to be row 1, and we're going to, because my yarn here is variegated, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some color control here. So this is how much yarn I have of the gray. So what I did here is I cut all of the gray. So for the sleeves, I'm going to make it in the next color, which is this off-white. And I'm probably going to use all of it and then get a little bit of the pink in there too for the sleeve. So I am going to be doing some color control, so that way both sleeves match. And then for the body, I'll continue with this yarn, which is what I have left over of the color here for the yoke. So let's get started here. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to knit, let's see, 30 stitches. Let's see. These are our button band stitches. So I'm just going to knit these 6 stitches, and I am going to continue with this here where I knit that stitch when I'm on the right side, but when I'm on the wrong side I slip. So now I am going to knit across these stitches. Let's see, I knit these 6 for the button band, so now I'm going to knit 1, 2, 24 plus 6, I have 30 stitches. Now remove this stitch marker. I'm going to leave these stitches here pending along with the yarn, and for the next 42 stitches, which are from here up to this other stitch, I'm going to have 42 stitches. So I told you I cut my yarn already, and I'm going to leave that along with my needles, and I'm going to use these straight needles. These are 3mm as well. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to attach the new color. Like I said, I am doing this with some color controlling so that my sleeves match. So here I'm going to knit this stitch here, remove the stitch marker, and I'm going to knit across to the other center stitch here. That's 2. $41, $42. So these here are going to be for the sleeve. 42 stitches for the sleeve. And now we're going to turn. And with my other needle here, I'm going to continue and just knit these 42 stitches. And I'm going to knit every stitch across, including the first one. There. Turn and repeat the same thing. We are only knitting these 42 stitches, and this here is for the first sleeve. And again, I am doing some color control here so that my sleeves match. So you will need at least 2 skeins, because I don't think I'm going to have enough to make the sleeves using this one color here, or this one section of this color in the skein. So continue now, just knit the sleeves. I'm not sure how many rows I'm going to do here for the first sleeve, but continue watching. I will let you know exactly how many rows I'm going to do. So I'm going to place a stitch marker here to mark the first row, and then I'll tell you how many stitches, and then I'll tell you how many rows I'm going to do. So continue, just knit across every row, every stitch, and I will meet you at the end of that row. I'm almost done with the sleeve. I have done a total of 52 rows. I have 26 rows in this off-white color and 26 rows in the pink. So now for the cuff, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to this lighter pink color, and I'm going to make the cuff in this color. Like I said at the beginning, I am doing some color control here, so that's how I'm keeping the colors the same, especially for the sleeves. So here I'm going to now knit the first stitch, and then I'm going to purl the next stitch. Here I'm starting the cuff. So knit 1, purl 1, so knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl. And this is how I'm going to continue all the way to the end. Here's the last stitch. I'm going to purl. Now turn here. Now for the second row, I'm going to slip this stitch and I'm going to purl the next. So knit, purl, knit, purl. And I'm going to do this all the way to the end of this second row here for the cuff, and then I'm going to repeat the same thing. So let me finish this second row here. We're just working these stitches exactly how they are. If it's a purl, then you purl. If it's a knit, then you knit. And here is the last stitch. This last stitch I'm going to purl there. Now turn for the third row and repeat the same thing. Okay, here I'm going to slip the first stitch and then purl the next. Oops. And knit the next, purl one, knit one, and so on. Now continue like this for the cuff. So far we have done 3 rows. This is the third row. So continue. I'm not sure how many rows I'm going to do here, but continue watching. I will let you know exactly how many rows. So I will meet you at the end of that row. I'm done with the cuff. I did a total of 8 rows. So now in row 9, I'm going to cast off our stitches. So here, slip the first stitch and then purl the next stitch. Now bring the first stitch that you slipped over the second. Now the next stitch you're going to knit and bring the first stitch over the second, purl the next stitch and bring the first stitch over the second. And this is how we're going to cast off our stitches. So you knit the next, bring the first stitch over the second, purl the next, bring the stitch that you had on the needles over the next stitch, and so on. Continue. Let's finish this row and then I'll come back and show you what we need to do next. I finished casting off my stitches. Here's the last stitch. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my yarn and I'm going to leave a nice long tail because we're going to seam the sleeve. You can do it now or you can do it after we're done. That would be up to you. I'm just going to do it after. So I'm going to, I don't know, leave some yarn here, about that much. We don't need to leave this too long. So just leave a nice long tail and then just pass your yarn through this last loop. And then I'm going to come back and show you how we're going to seam the sleeves after we're done with everything. So in total, I did 26 rows here, plus 26 rows in this other pink. That's 52 rows, plus 8 rows here for the cuff. And then on the 9th row, we cast off our stitches. So the sleeve is done, and this is how it looks from here up to here. Right now, as it is, it's measuring about 16 centimeters, which is about 6.25 inches. So for the size that we're making this for, it's perfect. So we're going to do the exact same thing for the second sleeve. So now what we're going to do is we're going to continue here. Make sure that you're on the right side, and you can see that we're on the right side because you can see this nice chain here that was formed when we were making the yoke. So I'm going to continue with this yarn here, the gray color that I left before I started the sleeves. Here so far we have done the stitches for the first front panel, which is 30 stitches here. So now under the sleeves I'm going to add 5 more stitches. So we're going to do this. That's 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm adding 5 extra stitches. Now we're going to continue and knit the stitches for the back side. For the back side we have 48. So knit, knit, knit. So here just knit across these 48 stitches, I will meet you right here, and then we're going to work on the second sleeve. Okay, I knit the stitches for the back side. I knit 48. So now I'm going to just remove these stitch markers, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to leave the needles here along with this yarn, and I'm going to do the same thing I did with the first sleeve. I'm going to continue with this white or the off-white yarn and knit 26 rows for the sleeve. So here I'm going to start you off with these straight needles. These are the same size, they're 3mm. I'm going to knit the first stitch here for the sleeve, and the main needle along with the gray yarn, I'm going to leave it there so that we can continue with the second front panel. So here's the first stitch. Remove that stitch marker and knit across. That's 2, 3, 41, 42. There, we have 42 stitches here for the second sleeve. I'm going to turn here, and again I'm just going to leave this needle here waiting until we're ready to finish the second front panel. So here I'm just going to continue and knit 26 rows with this color, or a total of 52 rows. For the first sleeve, how I did it is I did 26 rows here with this off-white color, then I did 26 rows with the pink, and then I did 8 rows of knit 1, purl 1 for the cuff, and then cast off with the third color, which is the light pink. So continue and finish the second sleeve. It's done exactly in the same way how I showed you with the first. A total of 52 rows plus 8 rows of knit 1, purl 1, and then cast off on the 9th row for the cuff. So finish, and I'll come back and show you what we need to do next. I finished making the second sleeve. I did it exactly in the same way how I showed you with the first one. In this color, I did 26 rows and then 26 rows with the pink. And here for the cuff, I did 8 rows, and then on the 9th row, I cast off my stitches. Then I left a long tail, just like I did with the first sleeve, so that we can seam this once the sweater is done. So now we're going to continue with the first row. So just to go over what we have done so far, we did this front panel here. I knit a total of 30 stitches, then I knit 42 stitches for the sleeve, and once we finish with the first sleeve, I added an extra 5 stitches here under the sleeve, and then continue with the back side. For the back side, I knit 48 stitches, and then I knit 42 for the second sleeve. I finished the second sleeve, so now we're going to continue here by adding 5 stitches, and then we're going to finish the second front panel, and that will complete the first row. So here I'm going to pick up this yarn here that I left. As I told you, for the sleeves I did some color control, so that's why my sleeves match. So you can do the same thing. To continue, I'm going to add 5 stitches. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we're going to continue and knit these 30 stitches for the second front panel. And all you do is just knit across. That's 2, 3, 29, 30. Now this completes the first row where we have knit the sleeves. We knit the front panels and the back side, and under each sleeve we added 5 extra stitches. So at the end of this first row, you should have a total of 118 stitches. We have 30 plus 30, we have 48 stitches for the back side, and then we have 5 stitches under each sleeve, so that equals 118 stitches at the end of this first row. Now we're going to turn. This is the wrong side, so here all I'm going to do is just knit these 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the 6th one, remember, we slip and pass your stitch marker and then just knit across up to the last 6 stitches. Here under the sleeves, I'm going to show you how you're going to knit the extra 5 stitches that we added, and then you're going to complete the second row. Okay, so here are the extra 5 stitches. All you do is just knit like you normally would. Four and 5, and then continue and knit the stitches for the back side, and then do the same thing under the other sleeve, and then finish the stitches here for the second front panel. I will meet you at the end of this second row. I'm here at the end of the second row. This is the wrong side. I have the last 6 stitches, so I'm going to pass my stitch marker. Remember this stitch here on this side, we slip so that this nice chain here remains, and then knit 5. There. Here's the second row. I have a total of 118 stitches. From here on, all we're going to do is just knit the rest of the little sweater, and it's easy. All you do is just knit across for this row and all the rows. When you're on the right side, this is the right side, keep track of your rows so that way you can continue and add your buttonholes. I have so far 3, so I'm going to continue and add them, and I'll let you know on which rows I do mine. I already told you at the beginning how many rows I'm leaving in between the buttonholes, so I'm going to continue in the same way. So this is all we're going to do here, just knit across, and then on the wrong side, remember to knit 5 and then slip the 6th stitch, then knit across up to the last 6 stitches and slip that next stitch and knit 5 at the end. So this is how we're going to continue now. We're always going to have 118 stitches at the end of each row. I'm not sure how many rows I'm going to do here, but continue watching. I will let you know exactly how many rows I'm going to do, so continue like this. I'm almost done with the body of the sweater. So far, from here up to here, I have a total of 38 rows. If I count all the rows, I have a total of 97 rows. I'm about to start row 98, and I have done a total of, let's see, 2, 4, 6 buttonholes, and I'm going to add 1 more, so I'm going to have a total of 7 buttonholes. So far I have added buttons on row 4, 20, 36, 52, 68, and 84. On row 100, I'm going to go ahead and add the 7th buttonhole. So now what I'm going to do here is the hem, and I'm going to do it exactly like this. So we're going to start here. So to do this, the measurement from here up to here, it's measuring about 15 centimeters, which is almost 6 inches. So we're going to now continue here with row 98, and I'm going to keep this part here the same, so I'm just going to knit these 6 stitches. Now I am on the right side right now. Now to make the hem, I'm going to purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl, knit, purl, and knit. And I'm going to do this up to the last 6 stitches. Like I said, I'm going to keep these stitches here for the front panels exactly the same. I'm just going to work the stitches in between. So I'm going to meet you right here 6 stitches before we finish for this first row here for the hem to show you how we're going to finish this row. Okay, I have knit and purled. Now I have the last 6 stitches here for row 98. So I'm going to knit 6 here at the end. Now turn, and we're going to knit 5 for row 99. Slip 1, pass your stitch marker, and then here we have our stitches. This stitch here I knit, and then I knit the last 6 stitches. So this here I am going to now purl, and I'm going to knit the next. Purl, knit, purl, and knit. And that's all I'm going to do for this row 99, or the second row here of the hem. I'm not sure how many rows I'm going to do, but you're just going to repeat this row. I'm going to add my last buttonhole in the next row, and then I'm going to do a couple more rows. I'm not sure, like I said, but continue watching. I will let you know exactly how many rows I'm going to do, and basically you're just doing the same thing. If you see a knit stitch, then you knit. If you see a purl stitch has this little bump, then you purl up to the last 6 stitches for this row. So up to these last 6 stitches, you're going to pass your stitch marker, slip this stitch, and then knit 5, turn, and then for me, I'm going to add my last buttonhole, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the stitches in between the front panels. Continue watching. I will let you know exactly how many rows I'm going to do here for the hem, so continue, and I'll meet you at the end of that row. I finished making the bottom part here of the sweater. I did a total of 8 rows where I knit 1, purl 1. This part here of the front panels remains the same. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cast off my stitches, and here, as I told you, I did my 7th buttonhole. So to cast off our stitches, we're going to knit 2 here at the beginning. Now bring the first stitch over the second, knit the next, bring the first stitch over the second, and so on. There, remove your stitch marker and then continue. This here is a purl stitch, so I'm going to purl, and then I'm going to bring this first stitch over. The next stitch is a knit, so I'm going to knit that stitch and bring the first stitch over. So purl the next, bring this stitch over the first, knit the next, and bring the first stitch over. This is how we're going to cast off our stitches, so continue, finish this last row, and then I'll come back and show you what we need to do next. I finished casting off my stitches. Here's my last stitch. Now here at the end, I've cut my yarn. What I'm going to do is with a crochet hook, I'm going to go right here to make this last stitch here a bit smaller. So I'm just going to work a slip stitch here where I pass my yarn through this last loop, and then all I need to do here is just hide this end. So just go through that same stitch there, and now as you can see, this opening is smaller. All I need to do now is just hide my ends. I'm going to do it here along the very edge. I'm going to make a small knot here. Perfect, and then just do a couple more. So this part here is done, and this is how it looks. So this little sweater is almost done. This is how it looks. I have my 7 buttonholes. So now I'm going to show you how we're going to seam the sleeve. So we're going to go here to this side. Again, this is the right side and this is the wrong side, the inside of the sweater. So we're going to do this from the right side out. So here's the yarn that I left, and with a yarn needle here, I'm going to seam the sleeves. Now you can knit the sleeves in the round. I would probably just continue and do the body and then do the sleeves after. It'll be a lot easier if you knit the sleeves last when you do it in the round. So here's the last stitch. I'm going to go here to the very first stitch on this other side, and we're going to join this part together like this. Now there is no right or wrong way of doing this. This is how I'm going to do it. So right along the very edge we have this stitch that runs along the very edge. So we're going to go stitch by stitch and row by row. Make sure that your rows correspond. That way you don't have leftover stitches here when you finish. So find the next row and then find the next row here and do the same thing. Next stitch and the next. There. So this part here is done. This is how it looks. You can pull a little bit and that's going to close. There. That looks fine. And now we're going to continue here. Now this part here is easier because we have, you see this little bump here along the very edge. That's where I'm going to be inserting my needle. And on this other side, I'm going to do the same thing. So starting on this side, find that first bump for that row, and then find the first one here on this side. Make sure that your rows correspond, and then do the next row and the next row here on this side. The next row and the next row, and so on. The important thing here is that your rows correspond so that it looks like this. Continue. I will meet you right here at the end to show you how we're going to join the stitches that we did here under the sleeves with the rest of the sleeve. I finished joining my sleeve. This is how it looks. Make sure that you give it a nice tug here so that this part here is nice and straight. So now what we're going to do here is, I think that pink is not the best of color here to close this part here because you might be able to see. So if you want, you can just reinforce a stitch here, cut this, and then use the gray to do this last part. But I'm going to continue and see how this looks. As you can see, my rows correspond. So my last stitches here were this last row here in white. So now I have the next row, which is this row in gray. So what I'm going to do here is we have this gray row right there. So go on this side, and then we have the row that corresponds on the opposite side. So go into that stitch, and now we are joined up to the gray row. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to join this side here of the raglan and the opposite side here, this part, and we're going to go through this like this. Make sure you pull this. There. That looks pretty good. And now we're going to put the needle through the inside, and I'm going to tie a knot right here. This is so that this part now looks like this. You can barely see it. This is how it looks. So it looks like a continuous chain all around the sleeve. So now we have this part here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go right here, right in the center. Here we added 5 extra stitches, so right in the center, right there. Insert your needle, and we're going to join to the center stitch. I am okay with having a gap here because it matches these holes here on this side and on this side. If you don't want a hole here, then go ahead and just join somehow with another stitch or two, this side and then this side. I am perfectly okay with how this looks now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reinforce this last stitch. I'm going to give it another little stitch there, but for the most part, it's done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and hide all my ends, and then I'll come back and show you the finished little sweater, and I'll give you the final measurements then. I finished making my little sweater. I went ahead and finished seaming the sleeves. I showed you this side. This is how it looks, and then I did the same thing here on this side. And that's how it looks. So this little sweater is all done. Look how beautiful it looks. I also went ahead and attached my buttons. I used 7 buttons, and these are 12mm size buttons. I used 7. Now let me give you the finished measurement. From the top of the neckline to the end of the sleeve, it's measuring about 27 centimeters, which is about 10.5 inches. From under the sleeve to the end of the sleeve, it's measuring about 16 centimeters, which is about 6.25 inches. Now this measurement here right across from here to here, it's measuring about 11.5 centimeters, which is about 4.5 inches. The total length from the top of the neckline to the end here of the last row, it's measuring about 28 centimeters, which is about 11 inches. Now the chest measurement, just the top, it's measuring about 24 centimeters, which is about 9.5 inches. So based on these measurements, this little sweater is for baby boys and girls between 3 and 6 months old. Now you can easily make it smaller or bigger from 0 to 3 months and up to 9 to 12 months. In the information box below, I'll go ahead and leave you some information on how you can easily make it smaller or bigger, so be sure to check that out. So here's the little cardigan sweater all finished. This is how it looks. Now you're going to need a total of about 140 grams. As I told you in the beginning, I did some color controlling here where I just took the skein apart and just separated the colors so that I can have even colors all around, especially for the sleeves because they are worked first. So here's the little cardigan. It's all done. So this was today's tutorial. I hope you like it. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.